Yeah, we're ready.
Go.
What is masculinity is what I was destined to find out, as in the past year I've heard this word a lot more than before. If this word is becoming popular and sometimes controversial, I first asked the smartest person I know to tell me the answer, Google. So, I searched deeply on the web, and the result it gave me was masculinity is qualities or attributes regarded as characteristics of men or boys. But that got me wondering, Google is not a man, so how does it know? So I decided to ask some qualified civilians of New Zealand on their thoughts on masculinity.
What is masculinity?
Masculinity is what people perceive you to do as a man.
Masculinity really is just looking at what it truly means to be male, be a man, and all that encompasses around identity, knowing who you are, what that means, being comfortable in that space.
Guys like being comfortable in themselves.
Just being comfortable in yourselves and how you want to define yourself as. Like, you don't have to be a guy to be masculine. You can also be a girl to be masculine. It's kind of an everyone thing. I feel like before it used to be really stereotypical, and now it's just kind of like a lot more open than it used to be.
If what masculinity means to you is only power, that's like pretty toxic.
Yeah, look, I think it's hard not to be aware of toxic masculinity, especially as a guy. And what it is, how I understand it, is that if you take the power aspect of being a male and turn it into something controlling, abusive, oppressive, violent, then that's what toxic masculinity is. It's not what masculinity should be, but you can turn that absolutely into something toxic.
I don't know when they're like Andrew Tate. Actually, I like Andrew Tate. But like it's when they're like, I'm better than everyone. Women are objects. That's what toxic masculinity is.
Yes, anything can be toxic in the wrong quantity. If you drink enough water, you'll drown. So toxic masculinity, I would say, is when males weaponize some of the features of masculinity in order to exert power, to exert influence over other men and women in ways that are not good. I saw a clip on social media yesterday about two guys who were just walking in the gym, and they just slightly bumped into each other. And I think a masculine thing would be like, oh, sorry, bro. But these two guys didn't want to back down. They got into a fight over who was in the wrong, and that's a perfect example of toxic masculinity.
Masculinity to me is like everyone thing, like it's not really defined, but if you put it into definitions, there's always be people like hating on that one like definition of masculinity or someone else's definition of masculinity. So I guess in general, I think masculinity is like hated because there are different like definitions of it. Like if it was like the toxic kind of stereotypical masculinity, people are gonna hate on that. And if it was like the more open, blurred lines of masculinity and like, oh, everyone can be themselves, people that are on another side will hate on that.
I think in order to understand who you are as a man, you need to understand the power that you hold. Not just power as in strength, but power to influence, look after, protect, be kind to, encourage. And I think those are the things that probably haven't been celebrated enough or talked about enough in the public eye.
By asking our qualified civilians, we learned how the media can make masculinity seem a lot worse than it actually is. We also learned how masculinity is changing, and how there is good masculinity and toxic masculinity. So I decided to interview my local gym manager and ask him the effects that these masculinities have had on his workplace over time.
My name's Isaac. I am the manager at Jets Millwater. We're a 70-30 split. I think it's about 68% of our member base are male. It's an interesting topic, the masculinity thing, because I think like it could stem into ego, and I think ego would play a big part into people's interpretation of masculinity. And in that case, yes, I have seen people's ego change and develop over time, which can come across as somewhat like toxic in the sense of toxic masculinity. But at the same time, I think masculinity has just been the same, just interpreted differently depending on whatever standards are put in place. It's just people buying in, especially males, if we're talking about males. It gives them an opportunity to feed their ego, or at least come into a place where they could develop their ego. And sometimes it's for the better. Sometimes the masculinity can be developed in a healthy way. But of course, in the case of a couple members who don't go here anymore, it can turn into quite a toxic behavior, a toxic mindset.
There was many things to learn while shooting and researching about this documentary. We learned how people have different opinions and meanings of masculinity, and it operates differently in their lives and around their days. We also learned how masculinity is subjective, and people have their own ways of looking at it and living it. people also mention how there's different types of masculinity, good masculinity and toxic masculinity, and how those things can make or break people's usage of masculinity in their day-to-day life. And this shows that masculinity is complicated but very simple, because you could use it in the wrong way or in a good way. And that's like many things in life. Overall, I really enjoyed doing this documentary, which I learned so many things, and it was really eye-opening. So there's one thing I could take from this documentary, was that masculinity is what you make it and how you perceive it, and how you want to live those characteristics. Thank you for watching. I hope you've learned something.